5:58 a.m. The lights over your head have not turned off once in 96 days. This morning they flicker once, and every man in the cell lifts his head at the exact same second. Nobody speaks. Speaking costs something in here that it never used to cost anywhere else. On the wall beside your section of floor, 96 small marks are scratched into the concrete with the edge of a fingernail, because a calendar is one more thing this place decided you don't get to have. 71 men share this room with you. You stopped counting the ones who arrived after you somewhere around week 6 and started counting the ones who haven't moved from their bunk in days instead. 2 sinks, 2 toilets. No door between any of it and anyone. Outside the bars, boots start moving, not the usual 2 guards doing the count, but 6, then 10, moving fast down the corridor in a direction nobody in this cell has ever seen guards move before. Beto, in the bunk above you, doesn't say anything. He just swings his legs down and sits up, which is the only warning system anyone in here has left. Somewhere beyond the far wall, a generator hums the same note it hums every hour of every day, the one sound in this place that never changes, so steady you started using it the way other men once used a clock. In about 90 seconds, you're going to find out whether those boots are coming for the pavilion 3 doors down or for you. This didn't start in this cell. It started 96 days ago, on an ordinary Tuesday, in a kitchen in Soyapango you never got to finish breakfast in. Level 1. Arrestee. 96 days earlier, you're standing in your kitchen at 5 in the morning when the banging starts on the door of the house next to yours. 4 seconds later, it starts on yours. Soldiers, 6 of them, then more behind them in the street, moving house to house down a block that's lived the same way for 20 years. A checklist. A flashlight run once across your arms, your neck, checking for ink that isn't there. Someone, somewhere, already wrote your name down before anyone here saw your arms at all. Nobody tells you why. Nobody has to not since March of 2022, when a single signature suspended the right to know why you're being held, the right to a lawyer, and the right to a phone call, all 3 at once, for the entire country. Your mother is still in the doorway when they walk you out. You hear her say your full name once, the way she used to when you were in trouble as a kid, like saying it carefully enough might undo whatever's happening. At the curb, someone takes your phone and drops it into a bag with a number written on it, the last thing connecting you to anyone, for longer than you could imagine standing in that kitchen this morning. 5 other men come out of 5 other houses on the same block before the sun is fully up. None of you know yet how many mornings just like this one are happening on other blocks, in other neighborhoods, at the exact same hour. You think, for the first 10 minutes, that this is a mistake someone sorts out by lunch. You're still thinking it on the bench at the station, sitting beside 11 other men from your neighborhood, all of you telling the same story to nobody who's listening. Lunch comes and goes. So does the idea that anyone is coming to sort this out at all. Level 2. Pretrial Detainee. A holding cell doesn't tell you how long you'll be in it. That's the part nobody warns you about, not the fear, but the not knowing wrapped around every hour of it. You share a room built for 30 with what looks like 200 men. You sleep sitting up the first night, standing the second, because sitting stops being possible once enough more men arrive. Somebody's cousin got out after 4 days. Someone tells you a fact, or a rumor with 4 days of hope stapled to it. You can't tell which. Somebody else has been here 6 weeks with no court date, no lawyer, no name attached to whatever he's accused of. You ask a guard, once, when you'll see a judge. He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. 15 days can pass before anyone has to explain anything to anyone under this law, and 15 days, you're learning fast, is a number that gets renewed the way a bridge gets closed for repairs that never finish, one quiet vote at a time, for the 34th month running, with nobody driving through it required to notice. Nobody explains what happens on day 16 if nothing has happened yet. Nothing happens. The days simply keep counting past the number the law was supposed to stop at, the way water keeps rising past a line someone drew on a wall, and then stop checking. A rumor moves through the room that some men aren't tried one at a time anymore, that hundreds of names get read into a single hearing on a single afternoon. You don't know if it's true. You've stopped being able to tell which rumors are the kind that keep you sane and which are the kind that are simply, quietly, true. On the 9th day, they call your name along with 200 others and load you onto a bus, your wrists zip-tied to the man beside you, headed toward a place nobody in the room has a name for yet. Level 3. Transferred Detainee. The bus doesn't have a destination anyone announces. You find out where you're going only when you see it. 2 hours south of San Salvador, past the last town whose name you recognize, the convoy slows, and the road opens onto 410 acres of cleared land. At the center of it, walls 9 meters high, topped with fencing that a guard mentions, almost bored, carries 15,000 volts. 19 watchtowers ring the perimeter, spaced so no stretch of wall goes unwatched for more than a few seconds. A guard riding along the fence line waves the convoy through without looking up from his phone, like the sight of 400 more men arriving stopped registering as anything worth watching. The man beside you says the name under his breath like it already means something permanent. Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, CECOT. Built for 40,000 men built. Everyone already understood before they saw it, so the design itself never has to consider anyone coming back out. Yours isn't the only bus. Ahead and behind, more of them idle in a line stretching toward the highway, each one carrying the same cargo of zip-tied wrists and lowered heads, converging on the same 8 rooftops rising flat and gray out of the cleared land. The doors open onto sunlight so bright after the dark ride that half the men beside you flinch like they've been hit. Above the formation, a camera on a boom arm is already filming, not for any file that will ever help you, you'll learn later, but for a broadcast the government will cut together tonight, of men just like you walking in rows with their heads already down. Somewhere, a stranger will watch that footage tonight and feel safer. Nobody films what happens to you after the camera stops. Level 4. New admission. They shave your head first, then hand you a pair of white shorts, and nothing else. And somewhere in that order, you stop being a name on a list and start being a body in a formation. A number replaces the name on your intake card. Nobody explains what happens to the name. A guard presses your fingers, one at a time, onto a scanner that beeps once and moves you along before you've registered what just happened to the last piece of paper with your real name still attached to it. Guards walk you in rows across open ground, cameras on poles tracking every step, toward one of 8 pavilions built to be photographed from far away and never entered up close. Your cell holds 70 men. Bare metal bunks stacked 3 high, no mattress, no sheet, no pillow, a detail so small you wouldn't have thought to fear it a week ago, and now it's the first thing your body registers every single night. A man near the door, older than most, watches you find a spot on the floor, because every bunk already belongs to somebody. He doesn't offer help. He also doesn't tell you to move. In this room, that's close enough to kindness that you'll remember it later. The lights come on overhead, and you'll learn over the next several nights that they do not go back off. Not at 9, not at midnight, not ever, and somewhere in the 3rd or 4th sleepless night, you stop being sure which one of those 2 facts is actually keeping you awake. Level 5. The Inmate. 30 minutes. That's the entire portion of the day the door opens for anything other than a meal tray pushed under the bars. The other 23.5 hours belong to 70 men and whatever they decide to do with them. If 84,000 people have passed through this system since the law began, and you stood every one of them shoulder to shoulder in a single line, that line would stretch farther than a marathon runner covers in a single race. You are one pair of shoulders near the very end of it, indistinguishable from the several thousand men directly behind you, and somewhere in that thought is the first time you understand that this was never really about you at all. Beto tells you on day 6 that he hasn't felt weather, rain, wind, a change in temperature since the day they brought him in 4 months ago. 4 months, on a charge nobody has ever read out loud to him. You do the math without meaning to. If his 4 months is normal, your 96 days is barely a beginning. If you get sick, a doctor comes to the module instead of the module going to a doctor, because the policy governing this entire complex, stated almost proudly by the men who run it, is that nobody assigned to these pavilions is meant to leave them again, except one specific way. Beto doesn't finish the sentence about the men from his old cell who never got carried out at all. He doesn't have to. There's no school here either, no workshop, no program with an end date attached to it, nothing that assumes, even quietly, that any of you are eventually going anywhere but exactly where you already are. The absence of that assumption is its own kind of sentence. One nobody had to write down for you to feel it. Level 6. In custody. Nobody tells you the rules here. You learn them by watching what happens to the man who breaks one. 3 days in, a new arrival younger than you, still moving like someone who expects an apology to matter, says something to the wrong man near the toilets. It's over in under a minute. Nobody intervenes, because there's no one inside these walls whose job that actually is only 70 men keeping order. The only way 70 men in one room ever learn to. You watch, and without anyone spelling it out, you understand exactly how careful you now have to be with your own voice, your own eyes, your own space, on a concrete floor that isn't really yours. The danger here isn't only the men with guns anymore. It's also the 69 men sleeping 3 feet away from you. Beto teaches you the geography of it, without ever using the word teach, where to sit, who to nod to, whose bunk you don't lean against, even by accident. You start sleeping with your back to the wall. You don't remember deciding to. Your body decided for you, somewhere between the second night and the 10th. There's an economy here too, small and constant, running under everything the guards can see. A shared bar of soap, a favor remembered and repaid 3 weeks later, a spot near the wall that changes hands when its owner is moved to another pavilion without warning. None of it is generosity. It's 70 men trading the only currency this place left them, and you still don't know what you're worth in it, or whether Beto's lessons will be enough tomorrow. Level 7. The Incarcerated. Your mother goes to the police station first, on day 12, and is told nothing. She goes to the ministry office in San Salvador next, and waits 4 hours to be told the same nothing in a different building. It's a neighbor, weeks later, who finally tells her the name of the place, not the government, not a form, not a phone call, because there are no phone calls. She takes a bus to the gate at Tecoluca on your 40th day. She stands outside the 9-meter wall for 6 hours with a bag of clothes she's told, eventually, by a guard who won't meet her eyes, that she can't leave and can't bring in. No visits. Not today. Not any day anyone can name for her. She sells a necklace her mother gave her to cover the fare, and 2 nights near the terminal, not because anyone asked, but because sitting at home felt like agreeing with whatever had already happened to you. She rides the bus home with the bag still on her lap. You don't know any of this happened until Beto's cousin, months later, mentions in passing that word travels slowly, secondhand, mostly wrong by the time it arrives about who's shown up at that gate and been turned away. You start doing the marathon math again, except this time it's her in the line. One mother among thousands standing outside walls just like this one, all of them holding a bag someone told them not to bother bringing. The government has said, in passing, that a fraction of the 84,000 turned out to have done nothing at all, and were eventually let go with no accounting for the months already lost. Nobody reads that number out loud to the men still standing in these cells. You don't know yet if you're one of the ones this eventually gets corrected for, or one of the several thousand it simply never will. When corrections happen, Beto tells you, it's rarely because anyone went looking for a mistake, it's because someone outside these walls, with a camera or a title, decides today is the day to be seen fixing one. Not that you're here, that the not knowing now runs in both directions. You don't know what's happening to her. She doesn't know if you're alive. You start rationing hope the way you'd ration water, in case the well is exactly as dry as it's starting to look. Level 8. The Prisoner. Which brings you back to 5:58 this morning, 96 days in, the lights flickering once, for the first time you've ever seen it happen, and boots multiplying down a corridor built to swallow sound before it travels far. Beto's already standing. Word moves through a cell like this one faster than any guard would like. Something happened 3 pavilions over. Nobody agrees on what, and now the entire block is being walked, cell by cell, checked, some of it more forcefully than the rest. You count guards through the bars without meaning to 2, 4, 6, the same reflex you've spent 96 days aiming at lights and days, now aimed at something that might matter. And then the generator stops. Not the lights, the generator. The one sound you've used as a clock for 96 days, gone mid-breath. And for the first time since you arrived here, the silence has a texture you don't recognize. Beto's eyes move to the door and stay there. You stand where you're told to stand. You hold your hands where you're told to hold them. 2 guards move through your cell counting heads out loud while a third watches from the door. And for 11 full seconds, nobody in the room breathes at a normal rate. Same as always, Beto says under his breath, the first thing you've heard him say in 6 days, and you understand, from how quietly he says it, that he means it as something closer to a prayer than a fact. The count matches. The door locks again. Somewhere beyond the wall, the generator catches and turns back over, and the lights settle into the same permanent daylight they've held for 96 days. The corridor outside goes quiet the way it always does, not peaceful, just quiet. The kind that means nothing happened this time, not the kind that means nothing ever will. Beto sits back down on the floor beside you like it's any other morning. You reach toward the wall out of habit, fingernail ready to add the 97th mark, and then you stop. Your hand still an inch from the concrete because some part of you has already decided it isn't worth doing today. You don't remember deciding that either. Somewhere outside a wall, 9 meters high, your mother is carrying a bag nobody will let her hand over, in a line of mothers longer than either of you will ever get to measure. Somewhere inside it, the lights are still on, the way they'll be on tomorrow, and the day after, and every day after that. Nobody outside these walls will ever be asked to count, including this morning. You.